love, period. I want to share with you that I couldn't fit the entire talk title, so that's why I did it. But what that means is random acts of kindness and senseless acts of beauty. So that's what today is about. We talked last week about love as compassion. And compassion is, I feel with you and I want to help alleviate your suffering. And so today we're going to talk about love as it shows up as kindness. I want to share with you some quotes, some of which we shared last week as well. But from Margaret Mead, never doubt that a small group of committed people can change the world. In fact, it is the only thing that ever has. And what I love about that is that you and I have the opportunity to be that committed group of people that is committed to our own spirit. We're committed to really bringing forth the love that we are, and today in particular through kindness and through senseless acts of beauty. And as we choose, as this small group of people, to stand in that and to live from that, that is what is going to change the world. Anonymous quotes, whenever someone does something nice for someone else, the entire world becomes a better place for all of us. And you're going to see how that works a little bit later in the talk. Some scriptures that speak about kindness, Galatians 5:22 and 23. But the fruit of the Spirit, the fruits of the Spirit, that is who and what we are. We are Spirit. We are the Christ. And so the fruits of what we are, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Against such things there is no law. Colossians 3:12, therefore as God's chosen people, and who are God's chosen people? All of us. There's nobody who's not chosen. Holy and dearly loved, clothe yourselves. I love that thought of clothe yourselves with tender-hearted mercy, compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. And partly why I love that so much is because we get so caught up in life and what life has many times shown up as through people, that we forget to be that ourselves. And so in those times that we forget it, I love the scripture because just kind of putting it on, it just feels so good to think of clothing ourselves with those things. Ephesians 4:32, instead be kind to each other, tender-hearted, forgiving one another just as God through Christ has forgiven you. And again, for me, this shows up as you know, we walk through our life and do any of us here have people that we don't agree with? Well, that side had a lot, this side had a few. I'm talking to you guys. or that just are different from us. And we have that tendency in our humanness to put up a wall, because we don't agree on something, or you're different, or whatever. And I love this reminds us to be tenderhearted, and to, when we forgive each other, it's simply that we're saying, I see you, and we can agree to disagree, but we can still love each other. I think that's such a huge thing for us. We can agree to be different. We can agree to have different thoughts and ideas, but we can still show up in kindness and loving each other. Solomon speaks in Proverbs 19:22, what is desired in a man and woman is kindness. And I love this scripture, Romans 12:9 through 13. Don't just pretend to love others. Really love them. Really love them. Hate what is wrong. Hold tightly to what is good. And here's the thing about that is that no matter how somebody else is showing up in our life, that I promise you there is something good that you can hold on to, and you hold tightly onto that good. Love each other with genuine affection and take delight in honoring each other. Never be lazy, but work hard and serve God enthusiastically. I always think of Kenneth when I think of that, because he serves enthusiastically. Rejoice in our confident hope. Be patient in trouble and keep on praying. And this right here, praying for another, is a huge act of kindness when we think good thoughts for other people and pray for them. When God's people are in need, who are God's people? All of us, everybody, be ready to help them, always eager to practice hospitality. Now, in order to understand kindness as it is written in the New Testament, we're going to go to the Greek meaning of it, which it refers to a kindly disposition to one's neighbors. Again, who are our neighbors? Everyone. We're going to keep saying that because we want to remember that nobody's left out here. Showing goodness and concern towards others. And every time that I looked up anything with kindness, the word benevolence showed up as well. And benevolence is the desire to do good to others just because that's who we are. Not because they deserve it, quote unquote. Everybody deserves it. And not because we think we're getting something back, but because that's who we are. That is the nature of God. That is the nature of us. So I want to share with you what is kindness, and think about these words as I read through them. It's consideration, cordiality, courtesy, decency, gentleness, good intention, goodwill, goodness, graciousness, heart, helpfulness, hospitality. And before I go to the rest of the list, just on this list itself, I thought, wow, in a lot of ways, what we've seen in our culture is that some of the aspects of kindness that have seemed to be missing are things like decency and cordiality and courtesy and gentleness, really coming from our heart. So who gets to change that? Yes, every single one of us. Okay, also humanity, patience, sweetness, humanitarianism, selflessness, unselfish concern, tenderness, warmth, regard, friendliness, care, thoughtfulness, generosity. Now, last week I referred to the parable of the Good Samaritan, and I want to share with you from the book called Jesus' Parables, Finding Our God Within by Robert Winterhalter. Of course, the Good Samaritan was the one who was walking by. He saw a man on the side of the road who had been robbed and he had been beaten. And what he tells us is in his interpretation, the Good Samaritan represents the Christ within us. It represents our Godness. It represents the reality of us that doesn't see the differences. Because at that particular point in time, a Samaritan helping a Jew on the side of the road was unheard of. That was just like, it was not a good match. But what I love about that parable is that the Samaritan didn't see a Jew. The Samaritan saw another human being who was suffering. He had compassion on him, and he showed up in kindness. And kindness is an expression of love. We think about what is love. Well, you can't really quote unquote define love, but we can do it the best that we can with our languaging. Kindness, and I loved it, Sean shared this with me, it's like the legs of love. Kindness is an action that we take. It's a demonstration of our Christedness, of our true beingness. And it takes being in the present moment, and it takes a willingness to be connected. It takes a willingness to walk in an awareness of our oneness with each other, no matter what, to walk in that awareness. How many of us heard the story many years ago about the person who bought coffee for the people behind them at Starbucks? Yeah, I'm sure we've all heard that story. It's a great story, isn't it? And then we found that since that time, things like that are happening over and over and over again. And my question is, why is that newsworthy? That's newsworthy. Oh my God, somebody did something kind for somebody else, and we're gonna put it on the news. And why is that newsworthy instead of being a normal, natural, daily occurrence for us? Now, I'm not belittling that, because it's wonderful. Those things come up and they are there to remind us. But the reality is that we have the opportunity to walk in that awareness of how, of what we are here to be. And that again is the expression of God. God gives without ever thinking about anything but its givingness, because it's its nature to give. And so we as expressions of God, we are here to be that same thing, and to be in that oneness, and to be in that ever-present givingness of love, however that shows up, but today in particular through kindness. So I want to share with you some stories about kindness. I want to start with a couple stories about Sandra Harville. Sandra Harville was a member here for many years, many years, and she made her transition last year around this time. And what I know is that Sandra was very committed to just being the presence of that she just was that. And so during this time of year, in honor of her, her family and friends are really focusing on being the presence of kindness in the world around them. So I contacted her daughter and asked her, can you share some things about your mom? And so here's what she shared. She shared that her mom obviously loved random acts of kindness. And so each Christmas, instead of giving gifts to each other, they would go out and they would do random acts of kindness. And then on Christmas Eve every year, they would come together and they would share their stories about these random acts of kindness. It's become a tradition in their family. She said one story that she'll always remember was that her mom was always one to get to know whoever waiters or waitresses whenever they dined out. And a few days before Christmas, they were at IHOP. And her mom, as normal, was just talking to the waitress, asking her questions about her life, and she found out that she was a single parent, had 2 kids, young kids at home, and that she was going to have to work on Christmas Eve. And so she was hoping that she was going to, be able to make enough money to buy some nice Christmas gifts for her kids to have gifts that morning so they could be entertained throughout the day. Well, before Sandra left, they ate their food, got up, and she left a $100 bill on the table for this woman. Now, can you imagine this single mom coming back and how that felt? And not only that the $100 mattered, but what really I know had to have touched her and filled her and expanded her was that act of kindness, that senseless act of beauty that was love. That was actually just the epitome of love. Another story she shared was that her mom was in a car accident years ago, and a young man had run a red light, and he had run into the side of her car, and it was her mom's new car, and everyone was fine, but this young man just felt really, really bad about having caused the accident, was so apologetic, and told her that he worked as an electrician, and mentioned that he had just paid his car off, and that, insurance would take care of it. He would just have to cover the $500 deductible. Well, Sandra couldn't stop thinking about this after she left, and so much so that she talked to her family about it, and all she could think about was how much overtime this man was going to have to work to come up with the $500. So they pulled together money, and then her husband went and dropped this $500 off at this young man's house anonymously. And again, can you even imagine how this affected this young man, and not only this young man, but his family and his friends that he was telling about it. When we are giving from this place of love, when we are being that expression of love, it expands. It just expands. It increases. That's what love does. Love expands and increases. This says just one act of kindness that you perform may turn the tide of another person's life. And you never know, but sometimes you do know. So I want to share with you, these are all true stories. The story of a man named Scott, and he was going to get his hair cut. There was a long line, and so as he was leaving, he noticed that somebody had dropped a wallet. So he picked up the wallet, and he looked in and found the driver's license, knowing this person was going to be missing their wallet. And you know how we all get those nudges, like to do something right in that moment? Well, he followed that nudge, and he, from the license, tried to find where this person lived, but he couldn't find it. Now, many of us would have at that point just kind of, given up or something, but he didn't, because he was following that deep desire, need of his to just, be in the aspect of love. And so he went home and he Googled where this address was. So he drives over, and it's in a very secluded place. And as he's driving in, he notices that there's a car that's parked kind of oddly, and the car is still running. And as he gets up closer, he sees that a man is in the car, and he's kind of bent over. Well, what happened was the man had had a stroke. And so he called 911 immediately. And the thing is that the doctor said that had he sat there for probably just another couple of hours, he would have died. But it was because of this man and his desire to just be in service to love and in kindness that this man is alive today. I mean, that's pretty awesome, wouldn't you say? I mean, you never know how. I mean, literally, it affects somebody's life. Another thing that I was reading it was about a young man who really had a very, very troubled life, really hadn't had much in the way of what you could call healthy love in his life. And he was at a meeting one day, and he said that a woman just came up to him and looked him in the eye and just put her hands on his face. And he said it wasn't until a couple months later, when he was really, really low and he was thinking about committing suicide, that moment came back to him. It was a moment where he felt so seen and so acknowledged and so deeply loved that one moment, that act of kindness, kept him from committing suicide. You never know how far your act of kindness reaches, and how important it is for us when we feel that nudging, when we feel that urge to trust it and to follow whatever that nudging is. I have to share this story with you. I actually saw this on Facebook last night. I shared it and said I'm going to share this today because it's just so beautiful. It's about a football team of junior high students in Olivet, Michigan. And so junior high, we're talking, 13, 14, 15-year-old kids. Well, they schemed and connived behind the coach's back to do a couple of plays differently than the coach would have necessarily wanted them to do it. And one of the ways in which they were doing that was if they had the opportunity to score, no matter how close they were, one of them, even if they had to just purposely fall, was going to fall at the 1 yard line. Well, that's exactly how it happened. You can actually see this on Facebook, and you see the kid just falling at the 1 yard line, and the fans were not happy about this, seeing this kid fall there. But the very next play, they put a young man, and his name is Kevin, in so that he could be the one to run across that goal line and score his first and probably only ever touchdown. Now, Kevin is a learning disabled young man that really doesn't understand boundaries, but it's actually kind of in a good way, because as you watch this video, he hugs everybody. He just has no boundaries on that, but he hugs everybody. And what this team wanted him to know was that they really saw him as a part of their team. And so when that next play came, and you can't even see Kevin because they have him so protected, but they, with him, ran across that goal line, and he scored the touchdown. And it was like, of course, everybody went wild. After the fact, as they were interviewing the one young man who was involved in this, they were asked, why did you do it? And he said, well, because Keith didn't have any friends. People made fun of him, and it was important to them that he felt a part of them. But I loved it. I love this. He said that he himself probably would have never thought of doing this, and he said it this way. He said, because before this, all I ever really thought about was myself and my friends. And then this young man I'm telling you, he's like 13 or 14, he just teared up as he said, from this point on, he said, I now am not only going to think of myself and my friends. He goes, I want to be caring about everyone, everywhere, all the time. And was I just like, oh, you just couldn't help but tear up as you were listening to the story. And how yeah. And so, how does that make you feel to hear these things? It just makes us feel good, doesn't it? It expands us. It inspires us. And I often think about the movie How the Grinch Stole Christmas. And even though it's a movie, it's very real in its expression, because the little girl, she could only see the beauty of this creature. And what did she do? She kept on being kind, kept on being kind, kept on being kind, kept on being kind, until finally the Grinch's heart grew 3 sizes. But I love that, because that's the point, is that it expands. It expands us. It expands others around us. And sometimes we just have to keep on keeping on, even when people are not responding to it. Because, sometimes a heart is so hardened by life that, if people keep on quitting, then that heart never really has the opportunity to soften. But when we're willing to know our oneness with each other and to stand in that and continue to be kind and continue to express love, then that heart will eventually, it will grow 3 sizes. Now, I also want to share with you that when it comes to kindness, kindness inspires kindness. And it just can't not. So what I want to do here is I want to show you a short video about how kindness inspires kindness. Now, this was specifically put together to show this, but I think that you'll be touched by what this is showing us.
Okay, this one's for Gabby.
They'll
star. Wake up where the clouds are far behind. Be where trouble melts like a lemon drops. High above the chimney top, that's where you find me, oh, somewhere over the rainbow, way up high. And the dream that you dare to, why, oh, why can't I?
I don't often take the opportunity to show video at Sunday. We do that Wednesday, but I just thought that was such a perfect video to show us how even it came full circle there, and it always does. But if you notice, there were only a couple of them that included money. And so what are some ways to give kindness away? Through a smile, through a pat on the back, saying to someone, you look wonderful, or just saying, how are you today? You know, is there some way that I can support you? Rubbing a tired back or saying good morning, even if a person looks pretty gruff. Taking grandma or grandpa to lunch, sending a thinking of you card, giving a gift of time, visiting a nursing home. One of our outreach that we're going to have the opportunity to do this year as a community is that we're going to have a local nursing home that has about 8 or 10 patients that don't have families at all. And we're going to have the opportunity to provide some gifts for them and hopefully go over and maybe sing some Christmas carols as well. Let someone ahead of you in line, or just praise someone, be patient, encourage someone, listen. Lighten up, look on the bright side for all concerned. Let someone take that parking space that you were going to take. Or, you know, I thought about one of the acts of kindness that just always tickles me is when I've gone grocery shopping and I'm got my cart and somebody comes up and says, "Can I take your cart for you?" I'm like, "Yes, thank you." So there are so many ways that we can just show up in kindness, in ways that just it makes a difference, and it makes a difference not only for the person who is receiving the kindness, but I promise you, they're going and they're telling other people about it. And so that is expanding. That's why it ripples out in ways that we can't even begin to possibly imagine. And then from there, then I'm sure those people are looking for ways that they can be in service in kindness. I'm going to close with some quotes. Henry James says, 3 things in human life are important. The first is to be kind, the second is to be kind, and the third is to be kind. Ralph Waldo Emerson says you cannot do a kindness too soon, for you never know how soon it will be too late. And we had stories that, really spoke to that. Lao Tzu said, kindness in words creates confidence, kindness in thinking creates profoundness, kindness in giving creates love. And that's why recognize that a kindness is thinking good thoughts about somebody or for somebody. A kindness is taking time. I love the loving kindness prayer and meditation, where we're literally thinking good thoughts about our and for our loved ones. Khalil Gibran says the smallest act of kindness is worth more than the greatest intention. So true. Bob Kerrey, American politician, said, unexpected kindness is the most powerful, least costly, and most underrated agent of human change. And that is absolutely true. Mark Ortman says one of the most difficult things to give away is kindness because it's usually returned. Donna Markova said, once you begin to acknowledge random acts of kindness, both the ones that you have received and the ones that you have given, you can no longer believe that what you do does not matter. And that's why I say no act of kindness is a small act. Every act of kindness increases everything around us. Bottom line, my friends, love is the answer. No matter what, love is the answer. Love is the answer for ourselves. Love is the answer for relationships and family dynamics, friend dynamics, spiritual family, in the community and in the world at large. And we get to be the expressions of that by saying, yes, kindness begins with, yes. Did somebody say you? Begins with me, it does. And so today for our peace song, I changed the words up, so we're going to say, let there be kindness on earth and let it begin with me. But for this week, and really, not just throughout this holiday season, but what we know is that there are people who are alone, people who are lonely, people who are suffering. For this holiday season, it just gets bigger for people. And so I encourage you as you leave here to leave with a heart wide open and with your eyes open with kindness, your ears open with kindness, your mind filled with kindness, that you can be the presence of love through kindness in the world, in the community around us. And together, this small committed group of people, you know what? We can change the world. And we do it one act of kindness at a time. So namaste, namaste.